The morning sun cast a golden glow across Windsor Castle as 9-year-old Princess Charlotte Elizabeth Diana stood before her bedroom mirror, carefully adjusting the small pearl necklace that had once belonged to her great-grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II. The young princess had developed a habit that both amused and moved the royal household staff. She would often study old photographs of the late queen, trying to copy her grandmother's graceful posture and dignified expressions. Charlotte's fascination with the Queen had begun years earlier, during family gatherings at Balmoral Castle in Scotland. While her older brother Prince George would run around the gardens with their younger brother Prince Louis, Charlotte would sit quietly beside the Queen, listening intently to stories about royal duties and the importance of serving the people. The Queen had noticed this special connection and often remarked to her lady-in-waiting that Charlotte possessed an old soul and natural understanding of royal responsibility. The connection between Charlotte and her great-grandmother went beyond mere admiration. Palace staff had begun to notice striking similarities in their mannerisms. Charlotte had unconsciously adopted the Queen's way of clasping her hands during formal occasions, the slight tilt of her head when listening to others, and most remarkably, the Queen's famous warm smile that could light up any room. These weren't learned behaviors that Charlotte practiced deliberately. They seemed to emerge naturally, as if she had inherited not just royal blood, but also the Queen's inherent grace. Lady Sarah Thompson, one of the Queen's former ladies-in-waiting who now occasionally helped with Charlotte's royal education, often found herself doing double takes when observing the young princess. During tea-time lessons about proper etiquette, Charlotte would unconsciously mirror the exact way the Queen held her teacup, with perfect poise, never allowing the cup to clink against the saucer. When greeting palace visitors during informal family events, Charlotte would extend her hand in the same measured way the Queen had done for over 70 years of public service. The resemblance became even more apparent during Charlotte's first official royal engagement alongside her parents, Prince William and Princess Catherine. The event was a visit to a children's hospital in London, where Charlotte was meant to observe and learn about royal duties. As they walked through the hospital corridors, Charlotte naturally fell into step beside her mother, but her posture and the way she acknowledged the staff and patients reminded everyone present of the Queen's legendary hospital visits. Dr. Margaret Foster, the hospital's chief pediatrician who had met the Queen multiple times over a 30-year career, later told colleagues that watching Charlotte interact with the young patients was like seeing a miniature version of the Queen in action. Charlotte had the same gentle way of bending down to speak to children at their eye level, the same patience in listening to their stories, and the same genuine interest in their well-being that had made the Queen beloved by millions. What struck observers most was Charlotte's instinctive understanding of when to be formal and when to be more relaxed. During the official photographs with hospital administrators, she stood with perfect posture, hands clasped in front of her, wearing a pleasant but appropriately serious expression. But when visiting the children's ward, her entire demeanor softened, and she became more animated, laughing with the children and showing genuine curiosity about their drawings and toys. The palace photographer, who had captured thousands of images of the Queen over the years, found himself amazed at how naturally Charlotte posed for official pictures. Without any coaching, she seemed to understand instinctively how to angle her body, where to look, and how to maintain the perfect balance between approachability and royal dignity that had been the Queen's trademark. Prince William and Princess Catherine had noticed these developments with a mixture of pride and gentle concern. They were delighted that Charlotte showed such natural aptitude for royal duties, but they also wanted to ensure she could enjoy her childhood without feeling burdened by expectations. They had decided to gradually introduce her to public events, always making sure the experiences remained positive and age-appropriate. The Queen herself had been aware of Charlotte's special attention and had made sure to spend quality time with her great-granddaughter during their final months together. Palace staff remembered seeing them walking hand in hand through the gardens of Balmoral, the Queen pointing out different flowers and birds while Charlotte listened with rapt attention, absorbing not just the information but also the Queen's calm, measured way of speaking and moving through the world. The weeks following Queen Elizabeth II's passing in September 2022 marked a significant turning point in Princess Charlotte's young life. While the entire royal family grieved the loss of their beloved matriarch, Charlotte seemed to process her grief in a unique way that surprised the adults around her. Instead of withdrawing, she appeared to channel her love for her great-grandmother into an even stronger embodiment of the royal qualities the Queen had represented. During the period of official mourning, Charlotte's behavior at family gatherings became a source of comfort for the entire royal family. When relatives visited Kensington Palace to share memories of the Queen, Charlotte would sit quietly in the corner, hands folded in her lap, listening with the same attentive dignity that had characterized the Queen's approach to receiving guests. Her aunt, Princess Anne, remarked to Princess Catherine that watching Charlotte during these difficult days felt like having a small piece of the Queen's presence still with them. The most remarkable transformation occurred during Charlotte's participation in the Queen's funeral preparations. While she was too young to participate in the actual ceremony, she was present during several family meetings about the arrangements. Palace staff observed that Charlotte seemed to understand the gravity of the situation without anyone explaining it to her. She spoke in softer tones, moved more deliberately, and showed an intuitive respect for the solemnity of the occasion that was extraordinary for a 7-year-old. Charlotte's teacher at Lambert School, Mrs. Jennifer Davies, noticed changes in the classroom as well. Charlotte had always been a bright student, but after the Queen's passing, she developed an even greater interest in British history and the monarchy. During history lessons, she would ask thoughtful questions about previous queens and their contributions to the country. Her essays about historical figures began to show insights that seemed beyond her years, particularly when writing about female leaders and their responsibilities to their people. The young princess also began to take a more active interest in her appearance and presentation, not out of vanity, but from a developing sense of appropriate behavior. She would ask her mother about proper posture during meals, the correct way to greet different types of guests, and even requested books about royal protocol from the palace library. Princess Catherine and her private secretary had to carefully balance encouraging Charlotte's interest while ensuring she didn't feel pressured to grow up too quickly. One particularly touching moment occurred during a private family dinner at Windsor Castle. King Charles III was discussing upcoming royal engagements when Charlotte quietly asked if she could help with any of the charity work. Her grandfather was moved by her sincere desire to contribute, but gently explained that she needed to focus on her education first. Charlotte accepted this guidance with the same gracious understanding that the Queen had always shown when advised by her counselors. The resemblance between Charlotte and the Queen became even more pronounced during the Christmas period of 2022. The family's first Christmas without the Queen was understandably difficult, but Charlotte seemed determined to help maintain the traditions her great-grandmother had established. She carefully observed how the Christmas decorations were arranged, asked about the significance of various royal Christmas customs, and even requested to help write thank-you notes to staff members, copying the Queen's practice of personally acknowledging everyone who served the royal household. Palace staff began to notice that Charlotte had developed the Queen's distinctive way of walking, measured, purposeful, but never hurried. During informal family gatherings, she would unconsciously mirror the Queen's habit of standing with perfect posture while engaging in conversation, never appearing restless or eager to be elsewhere. Her governess, Mrs. Rebecca Phillips, observed that Charlotte seemed to have internalized the Queen's philosophy that royal duties were privileges to be honored rather than burdens to be endured. The most striking evidence of Charlotte's connection to her great-grandmother emerged during a family visit to Sandringham Estate in early 2023. As they toured the house, Charlotte stopped in front of a portrait of the Queen and stood quietly for several minutes. When Princess Catherine asked what she was thinking about, Charlotte replied that she was trying to remember all the stories Gone had told her about being a good princess. This moment crystallized for the family that Charlotte wasn't simply mimicking the Queen's behavior. She was genuinely trying to understand and embody the values the Queen had represented. The young princess's natural empathy also seemed to mirror the Queen's legendary ability to connect with people from all walks of life. During a visit to a local farm near Amer Hall, Charlotte showed genuine interest in learning about the farmers' work, asking questions and listening to their answers with the same focused attention the Queen had always given to the people she met during official visits. The farmer later told local reporters that the young princess had a special quality that reminded him of meeting the Queen years earlier during a royal agricultural show. The spring of 2023 brought Princess Charlotte's first major public appearance since her great-grandmother's passing, and it would prove to be a defining moment that showcased her remarkable connection to the Queen's legacy. The occasion was the annual Commonwealth Day service at Westminster Abbey, where Charlotte would join her parents and grandfather, King Charles III, in representing the royal family before thousands of attendees and millions of television viewers worldwide. In the weeks leading up to the service, Princess Catherine worked closely with Charlotte to prepare her for what would be a significant step in her royal education. However, what surprised everyone was how little coaching Charlotte actually needed. During practice sessions at Kensington Palace, she demonstrated an intuitive understanding of when to stand, when to sit, and how to maintain appropriate composure throughout a lengthy religious service. Her behavior during these rehearsals reminded palace staff of the Queen's legendary ability to remain focused and dignified during even the most challenging public appearances. The morning of the Commonwealth Day service dawned bright and clear, and Charlotte appeared at breakfast already dressed in a navy blue coat that bore a striking resemblance to outfits the Queen had worn to similar occasions. The choice hadn't been coincidental. Princess Catherine had worked with the palace's fashion advisors to select clothing that would honor the Queen's memory while remaining appropriate for a young princess. Charlotte wore a small brooch that had belonged to the Queen, a touching detail that many observers would notice and appreciate. As the royal family's motorcade approached Westminster Abbey, Charlotte could be seen through the car window, sitting with perfect posture, looking out at the crowds with a calm expression that belied her young age. Unlike her brothers, who had shown some nervousness during previous public appearances, Charlotte appeared completely at ease, as if public scrutiny was something she had been born to handle with grace and dignity. The moment that would define the day occurred as Charlotte stepped out of the car at Westminster Abbey. Hundreds of photographers and camera operators captured the scene as she emerged, and many of them immediately noticed something extraordinary. Charlotte's demeanor, the way she acknowledged the crowds with a gentle smile and small wave, and even her measured pace as she walked toward the Abbey entrance were remarkably similar to the Queen's approach to public appearances throughout her 70-year reign. Inside the Abbey, Charlotte's behavior throughout the 90-minute service demonstrated a maturity that amazed both royal observers and regular members of the congregation. She followed along with the order of service, stood and sat at appropriate moments, and maintained the kind of respectful attention that had been the Queen's hallmark during religious ceremonies. When the congregation sang, "God Save the King," Charlotte's clear, strong voice could be heard by those seated nearby, singing with the same reverence the Queen had always shown for the monarchy's traditions. Perhaps the most moving moment came during the reading of a lesson about service and dedication to others. As the words echoed through the ancient abbey, Charlotte sat with her hands folded in her lap, her expression thoughtful and engaged. Palace staff later remarked that her posture and attentiveness were identical to photographs of the Queen listening to similar readings during her own childhood appearances at royal events. The public reaction to Charlotte's appearance was immediate and overwhelmingly positive. Social media platforms filled with comments from people who had noticed the resemblance between Charlotte and the Queen, with many expressing how comforting it was to see the Queen's grace and dignity reflected in her great-granddaughter. Royal biographers and commentators began discussing Charlotte's natural aptitude for royal duties, with several noting that her behavior suggested she had inherited not just the Queen's appearance, but also her understanding of royal responsibility. Following the service, Charlotte joined her family for a reception with Commonwealth dignitaries and officials. Here, her ability to engage with adults in conversation showcased another similarity to the Queen's legendary social skills. Charlotte listened attentively when introduced to various officials, asked appropriate questions about their countries, and thanked them for their service to the Commonwealth with a sincerity that impressed seasoned diplomats accustomed to royal interactions. One particularly memorable exchange occurred when Charlotte met the High Commissioner from New Zealand, who had known the Queen personally for over 20 years. During their conversation, he later told colleagues that Charlotte's manner of speaking, her genuine interest in learning about New Zealand's culture, and her thoughtful questions reminded him strongly of conversations he had had with the Queen. The commissioner remarked that it felt like meeting a young version of the beloved monarch he had known and respected for so long. The day concluded with Charlotte joining her family on the balcony of Buckingham Palace for a brief appearance before the crowds gathered on the Mall. As she waved to the thousands of people below, many observers noted that her wave was remarkably similar to the Queen's distinctive greeting, measured, graceful, and somehow managing to acknowledge everyone in the crowd simultaneously. The image of Charlotte on the balcony, with the Union Jack flying overhead and crowds cheering below, became one of the most widely shared photographs of the royal family in 2023. The success of Charlotte's Commonwealth Day appearance marked the beginning of a carefully planned introduction to more public royal duties throughout the summer of 2023. King Charles III and Prince William had agreed that Charlotte's natural abilities should be nurtured gradually, allowing her to develop confidence while maintaining the carefree aspects of childhood that were so important to her overall development. The first test of Charlotte's growing royal skills came during the annual Trooping the Color ceremony in June 2023. This would be Charlotte's most high-profile appearance yet, involving not just public scrutiny, but also the complex choreography of a major state occasion. In the weeks before the event, Charlotte joined her family for several practice sessions, learning about the history of the ceremony and her role in the day's events. What impressed the palace staff during these preparations was Charlotte's ability to absorb and remember detailed information about royal protocol. She quickly learned which members of the family would ride in which carriages, the significance of the different military regiments participating in the parade, and even the historical importance of the balcony appearance that would conclude the day's events. Her questions during these briefing sessions showed a level of engagement and understanding that reminded everyone of the Queen's lifelong dedication to learning about royal traditions. On the morning of Trooping the Color, Charlotte appeared in a powder blue dress that perfectly complemented the solemnity and celebration of the occasion. As she took her place in the horse-drawn carriage with her mother and brothers, photographers captured images that would later be compared to similar photographs of the Queen as a young princess during the 1930s and 1940s. The resemblance was striking, both in Charlotte's composed expression and in the way she naturally positioned herself during the carriage procession. The carriage ride through central London provided Charlotte with her first extended experience of being the focus of massive public attention. Thousands of people lined the route from Buckingham Palace to Horse Guards Parade, many of them specifically hoping to catch a glimpse of the young princess who had captured public imagination with her resemblance to the beloved Queen. Charlotte's response to this attention demonstrated remarkable poise for an 8-year-old child. Throughout the carriage procession, Charlotte maintained a perfect balance between acknowledging the crowds and preserving royal dignity. She waved consistently, but not frantically, smiled genuinely without appearing overly excited, and showed appropriate interest in the spectacle around her, while never forgetting that she was representing the royal family. Observers noted that her behavior was remarkably similar to archived footage of the Queen during her own childhood appearances at major state occasions. The most challenging part of the day came during the actual ceremony at Horse Guards Parade, where Charlotte would need to stand for extended periods while maintaining perfect composure during the complex military pageantry. The ceremony included intricate drill movements by multiple regiments, musical performances by military bands, and the formal inspection of troops by King Charles III. For a young child, the combination of noise, movement, and formal requirements could easily become overwhelming. Charlotte's performance during this portion of the day exceeded everyone's expectations. She stood with perfect posture, throughout the ceremony, following the movements of the other royal family members while maintaining her own sense of appropriate behavior. When a national anthem was played, she sang along with clear conviction. During moments when the ceremony paused, she remained alert and engaged rather than becoming restless or distracted. The climax of the day came with the traditional RAF flyover and the royal family's appearance on the Buckingham Palace balcony. As the aircraft roared overhead in precise formation, Charlotte joined her family in looking up at the display, her expression one of genuine wonder that delighted the crowds below. When she turned to wave at the thousands of people gathered on the mall, her smile and gesture were so reminiscent of the Queen's iconic balcony appearances that many observers felt they were witnessing a beautiful continuation of royal tradition. The press coverage of Charlotte's trooping the color appearance was overwhelmingly positive, with royal commentators praising her natural grace and dignity. Several newspapers ran front-page photographs comparing Charlotte's balcony appearance to similar images of the Queen as a young woman, highlighting the remarkable similarities in their posture, expressions, and overall presence. The coverage helped establish Charlotte in the public mind as a worthy successor to the Queen's legacy of royal service. Behind the scenes, family members expressed their pride and amazement at Charlotte's instinctive understanding of her role. Prince William told palace staff that watching Charlotte during the ceremony reminded him of his own childhood memories of the Queen during similar events. Princess Catherine noted that Charlotte never needed reminding about appropriate behavior. She seemed to understand intuitively what was expected and delivered accordingly. The day concluded with a private family dinner at Buckingham Palace, where King Charles III formally thanked Charlotte for her excellent representation of the royal family. According to palace sources, Charlotte accepted this praise with the same gracious dignity that had characterized the Queen's response to public acclaim throughout her reign. She thanked her grandfather for the opportunity to participate and expressed hope that she had honored the family's traditions appropriately. The autumn of 2023 brought an unexpected opportunity that would become the most significant demonstration yet of Princess Charlotte's remarkable connection to her great-grandmother's legacy. The occasion was the state visit of the President of France, an important diplomatic event that required the full participation of senior members of the royal family. While Charlotte had not been originally scheduled to participate, a last-minute change in arrangements meant she would join the welcoming ceremony at Windsor Castle. The French state visit held special significance because it was the first such event since the Queen's passing, and President Emmanuel Macron had specifically requested that the ceremony honor the memory of Queen Elizabeth II, who had hosted him on several previous occasions. The palace protocol team faced the delicate challenge of maintaining the dignity and traditions established by the Queen while adapting to the new reign of King Charles III. Charlotte's preparation for this event was more intensive than for any of her previous public appearances. She spent time with the palace's chief protocol officer, learning about the specific etiquette required for welcoming foreign heads of state. She studied the order of ceremonies, practiced the appropriate curtsy for greeting the French president and First Lady, and learned about the historical significance of Anglo-French diplomatic relations. What impressed her tutors during this preparation was Charlotte's ability to understand not just the mechanics of royal protocol, but also its underlying purposes. When asked why certain traditions were important, she demonstrated an intuitive grasp of how ceremony and ritual served to show respect for guests while representing the dignity of the British monarchy. Her answers showed a level of comprehension that reminded palace staff of the Queen's own deep understanding of diplomatic protocol. The morning of the state visit dawned crisp and clear, perfect weather for the outdoor ceremony at Windsor Castle. Charlotte arrived at the castle wearing a burgundy coat with gold buttons, chosen to complement the formal attire of the other royal family members while maintaining her own age-appropriate style. Around her neck, she wore a simple gold necklace that had been a gift from the Queen, a detail that many observers would later notice and appreciate. As the French presidential motorcade approached Windsor Castle, Charlotte took her position alongside King Charles III, Princess Catherine, and other senior royals. The waiting period before the guests arrived provided an opportunity for final reminders about protocol, but Charlotte appeared completely calm and prepared. Palace staff later noted that her composure during these tense moments before major events was remarkably similar to the Queen's legendary ability to remain relaxed under pressure. The moment of the French president's arrival provided the most striking demonstration yet of Charlotte's natural royal instincts. As President Macron and Brigitte Macron stepped from their vehicle, Charlotte executed a perfect curtsy that was neither too deep nor too shallow, showing exactly the right level of respect for visiting heads of state. Her timing was flawless, and her recovery to standing position was smooth and dignified. During the formal introductions, Charlotte's interaction with the French First Lady became a highlight of the ceremony. Speaking in carefully practiced French phrases that she had learned specifically for the occasion, Charlotte welcomed Brigitte Macron to Britain and expressed hope that she would enjoy her visit. The First Lady was visibly charmed by Charlotte's effort to speak French and later told reporters that the young princess reminded her of meeting Queen Elizabeth II for the first time. The state banquet that evening provided Charlotte with her most formal dining experience to date. She had spent weeks learning about proper etiquette for state dinners, including the correct use of multiple courses of silverware, appropriate conversation topics with foreign dignitaries, and the protocol for formal toasts. The palace staff were prepared to assist if needed, but Charlotte navigated the entire evening without requiring any guidance. During the dinner, Charlotte was seated between a French cultural attaché and a British government minister, both of whom were experienced in diplomatic conversations. Rather than remaining silent or offering only polite responses, Charlotte engaged both guests in thoughtful discussions about French culture, asking questions about famous French landmarks, and expressing genuine interest in learning about Franco-British friendship. Her ability to maintain these conversations while following proper dining etiquette impressed everyone at her table. The evening's most memorable moment came during King Charles III's formal toast to the French delegation. As tradition required, all guests stood when the king rose to speak, and Charlotte's behavior during this moment captured the attention of everyone in the room. She stood with perfect posture, held her water glass appropriately, and maintained an expression of respectful attention throughout the king's remarks that was identical to the queen's bearing during similar occasions. President Macron's response to the toast included a specific mention of Princess Charlotte, praising her grace and dignity while noting that she embodied the best traditions of the British monarchy. This unexpected recognition brought a gentle smile to Charlotte's face, but she maintained her composure throughout the president's remarks, accepting the compliment with the same gracious dignity that had characterized the Queen's response to public praise. The conclusion of the state visit marked a significant milestone in Charlotte's development as a working member of the royal family. The unanimous praise from diplomats, government officials, and palace staff established her reputation as a natural ambassador for Britain. More importantly, the event demonstrated that Charlotte had not simply inherited the Queen's appearance, but had genuinely absorbed her great-grandmother's understanding of royal duty and service to others. In the months that followed, Charlotte's role in the state visit would be remembered as the moment when the public truly understood that the Queen's legacy lived on in her great-granddaughter. The combination of natural grace, genuine warmth, and instinctive understanding of royal responsibility that Charlotte had displayed convinced observers that the monarchy's future remained in excellent hands, guided by the same principles that had made Queen Elizabeth II one of the most respected monarchs in British history.